I became involved with this project when my oldest cousin, Ballard, called. He was back east, and he had been informed by the government that they had recovered Ballard's, he is actually his namesake, they had recovered Ballard's remains and had were 100% sure that they were Ballard's. And he asked if I would take care of the details here in Utah for the bringing home of our soldier. And it has been a wonderful experience. We have had to hunt for relatives all over the United States to come in and join in this. We have had meetings with the government, 2 different sets of helpers, Colonel Bell and Colonel Burkhart. I think Colonel Burkhart's in Kentucky. And Ballard, my cousin Ballard worked with him, and I worked a lot with Colonel Bell. And they are from the Repatriation Committee that we had no idea existed. It's a huge, massive setup in Hawaii that has developed DNA and anthropology and a dozen other things to help identify these unknown soldiers. So it's been a huge education. They had information about Ballard's imprisonment, how he died, what the problems had been when they first excavated the graves, and all of that followed in 77 years. So with all of that said, we have just floated on cloud 9 for 2.5 months to know that we can be close to a relative that we have never met, that we can feel that we are in the same room with him. And it's taken a lot of research. We've dug out our own records, things that our parents had collected and kept, and tried to piece together his life, not just as a soldier, but as a human being. I see a boy with his back to the turmoil, playing the flute. In other words, he is not just the soldier, he is not just the casualty of war, he is a boy playing the flute. He is a 20-year-old member of our family whose life ended before he got to live the rest of it. If we didn't know anything about Ballard, other family members, we must tell stories about personalities, what qualities we got from them, the shortcomings and the good. Stories are not to go untold while we spend years of our lives putting out fires, climbing the ladder, becoming swallowed up by unpleasant circumstances we have no control over, or the common demands of everyday life. Otherwise, Ballard and perhaps our own parents or ourselves are going to get lost to loved ones that come after us. In closing, I would like to relate to you a favorite moment that my mother had with Grandma Yeates. She said to her, "You had 2 sons missing in action and the other 4 children directly involved in the war effort when your husband had a heart attack at the age of 63. And they always considered that that was a death incident to war. How," my mother asked, "did you carry on?" Grandma's reply was simple and short. "The Lord prepares the back for the burden."
In the quiet, misty morning, when the moon has gone to bed, when the sparrows stop their singing, and the sky is clear and red, when the summer ceases bleeding, when the corn is past its prime, when adventure's lost its meaning, I'll be homeward bound in time, riding on to the pasture, streaming on to the path, set me free to find my calling, and I'll return to you somehow.
With U.S. involvement in the war looming, Ballard joined the Signal Corps in March 1941, 9 months before the attack on Pearl Harbor. He trained with the Army Air Corps as a radio man and arrived at Manila Bay in November, just 2 weeks before the bombing of Pearl Harbor. For background, and for those of you who weren't born under a 48-star flag, like many of us, after Pearl Harbor, just 10 hours later, the Philippine Army invaded the Philippines, which led to the largest surrender in American history. 10,000 Americans and 66,000 Filipino troops. Uncle Ballard was one of those soldiers. As I said, America was losing the war. For fear of capture, General Douglas MacArthur was spirited off the island of Corregidor, which lay at the very tip of the Bataan Peninsula, prompting him to make the now famous statement, "I shall return." The Bataan Death March was a war crime. Atrocities were rife. POWs were forced to stand next to a fresh stream, but weren't allowed to drink, even though they were exhausted and dehydrated. After a while, when one soldier could not take it anymore, he ran to the stream and fell face first in to drink. Immediately, a guard ran over, pulled out his sword, and cut the man's head off. One statistic sums up the depravity of the Japanese mentality at the time. During World War II, the death rate in German and Italian prisoner camps was 4%. In the Japanese camps, it was 27%. Ballard was marched with 78,000 Filipino and American troops toward Camp O'Donnell, a former Filipino garrison, where between May and June, an incredible 1,500 Americans and 16,000 Filipinos died. In June, Ballard and other survivors were moved 60 miles east to Camp Cabanatuan, where 503 men died in June and 786 died in July. Ballard was one of the 786. He had survived the Bataan Death March, but months later died of malaria and dysentery at the Cabanatuan prison camp.
My dad, to honor his brother, also gave me the name of Ballard King Yeates, only the second now. First of all, I would like to give a hearty shout out to the Casualty Assistance Program of the United States Army, for which all of this came together because of their efforts. And that was Colonel Jim Bell of Fort Knox, Kentucky, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Burkhart of Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and for Master Sergeant Trujillo of the Utah National Guard. And we thank them wholeheartedly for all their efforts. In addition to them, we should be also grateful to the forensic scientists that worked hard behind the scenes to identify Uncle Ballard. Scientists in Hawaii that pursued their credo of the no soldier left behind on the battlefield. There's that adage about all gave some, but some gave it all.
Dear family members and friends, members of the South Cache American Legion Post 47 are honored to provide military honors for a friend and brother in arms, Ballard Yeates. His mortal life was blessed with happiness and joy because he and men and women like him have served honorably and without hesitation to protect the rights, privileges, and freedoms we all enjoy in this great country. Ballard Yeates has been properly cared for, and his mortal battles are over. Until we meet again, may God bless and keep you and your family, and these the United States of America.